A quick note before we begin. This was an unplanned episode featuring a heartfelt and spontaneous conversation. It includes a brief discussion about Bill's experience losing a young patient in the emergency room. Listener discretion is advised, especially for those who may find discussions of loss or grief emotionally difficult or triggering.
I think it comes down to really being intentional with your time. I think what you were talking to Jackie and I before we hit record about was how you're intentionally downshifting, and it's something that you can reevaluate as time goes on. But as long as it still serves you and your life and what you want to be doing, then it's totally fine to keep working.
Stop doing what you're doing, embrace the next step. And what I found is all of a sudden I started enjoying my work more. I didn't have to do it. I didn't have to be there. And then, as we just talked about, it gave me a huge lever to pull.
Welcome to Catching Up to Fi, a podcast on mindset, money, and life for late starters of any age on their journey to financial independence. I'm Bill, and I'm a late starter.
I'm Jackie, and I'm also a late starter, and we're your host. We're here to help you on your journey to financial independence, no matter where you're starting.
We're going to talk to experts, other late starters, and explore topics related to our mission.
Join us as we catch up to Fi together.
Hello, folks, and welcome back to Catching Up to Fi. I'm Bill Yount with Jackie Cummins-Koski and our dear friend, Patrick, who is working with us on the newsletter. We're all here, and we just wanted to spontaneously jump on a conversation that started and share it with you because it's actually top of mind for me, and Jackie's been through it. Patrick deals with it with clients, and it's that quote-unquote dreaded one more year syndrome. And is it really a bad thing? Jackie, it's good to be seeing you today. Patrick, you also.
Yeah, good to see you, partner. And Patrick, it's always a treat when we can get you on, friend.
Yeah, glad to see both of you again.
Yeah, so Jackie, we were just chatting about this sort of stigmatized and overblown, in my mind, concept of the quote, one more year syndrome, end quote, as if it is a terrible thing to engage with. And it's almost looked down on in our population if you, quote unquote, succumb to it or wake up later and realize that, shit, I could have retired 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago and I didn't know it, and I've been suffering from a disease I didn't know about. You've been through it. Maybe tell us about your experience.
First of all, I would characterize it a little differently. I don't think it's looked at as always a negative thing, but it's almost a necessary ebb and flow of your transition from becoming Fi to reaching Fi and what happens afterwards. So for me, I would describe it as just that hesitation. And maybe it was a healthy hesitation. So I'm not even saying that it was a bad thing, but being retired for 7 years now, I can have the benefit of reflection. And I'm like, I really wish I could have done it sooner. What I see as the one more year syndrome is just being afraid or a little fearful of making this big shift, jumping from your corporate job or your regular day job to now being free and the manager of your own time. What am I going to do? And we have all these questions. For me, it was 2 years. And financially, I believed I needed more money to be more comfortable. Grew up in poverty. So the last thing I wanted to be thrust into poverty if everything didn't work out. So I think it's always worth a really good conversation. I don't know if it's always a bad thing. It gave me the cushion that I needed, but I do realize that I was a little more fearful than I probably should have been.
Okay, so Patrick, you deal with clients in your role as a certified financial planner, and you're on the younger end of the spectrum, and your clients are a couple generations ahead of you. But your wisdom, I'm sure, is really helpful in your perspective, because there's the unintentional one more year syndrome, and then the I know I'm going into it problem. How do you talk to clients about this so that they don't feel they have that regret of having worked too much and been too afraid to take the leap from chapter 1 to chapter 2, which we'll talk about.
So I'll clarify a couple things first. First of all, not a CFP yet, waiting for my hours still. Second thing is I'm an associate financial planner. So although I'll talk to our firm's clients and work on their plans, I'm usually not leading the conversation, and I get to be in the backseat and observe a lot of those conversations, provide my thoughts and input as it's kind of asked from both the client and the primary advisor. But yeah, I have seen one-time plan, especially people that they think their numbers are really solid and there's something they really want to do in their life. And then we show them the plan, and there are those one more year syndrome people out there that they really are being a little bit too conservative. We know that. We show them all the outcomes that they could have. And if you're familiar with Monte Carlo simulations, I have started thinking of it more as probability of making a change. When we're talking about a person that's potentially retiring early, we're looking out really far. For sure, there are going to be changes that we don't know about yet. And I think it comes down to really being intentional with your time. I think what you were talking to Jackie and I before we hit record about was how you're intentionally downshifting, and it's something that you can reevaluate as time goes on. But as long as it still serves you and your life and what you want to be doing, then it's totally fine to keep working, I think. And we don't even have to be talking about retirement even. If there's something that you want to be doing and you're putting it off because you're afraid of blowing up your plan, even after you've seen the numbers and how it could work out, then that's to me what I think of as one more year syndrome. It's not literally, oh, I'm working one more year because of whatever reason. It's the idea that I'm putting something off, even though I know probably as far as historical data shows that I'm probably going to be okay.
Yeah. So, Bill, you're in the throes of it, right?
Yeah, as people may remember, I was surprised by FI. I engaged with a planner to do a retirement readiness checkup. I had every reason to believe that I was going to be working 1, 2, 3 more years at that point. And then having run in the numbers granularly, he told me that, yeah, you guys are FI. You can stop now. And I wasn't ready for that. It was a bit of a shock, a bit of a surprise. I had been preparing for it. And there was an interesting comment on Choose FI today that I saw, because there was somebody that is kind of desperate for it. They figured that they were 1.5 years out. And they're like, what do you do? How do you wait? How are you patient? You can see the end in sight. And I'm like, retirement is a number, but in much a bigger sense, a process. And it's like a marshmallow test, like in the old days, where do you want 1 or 2? And you can see that you're going to get there in 1.5 years. You know that's a reality. And how do you tolerate the anticipation? Well, yeah, you want to wait for that second marshmallow and not necessarily eat it now. And then don't forget to enjoy the journey and the process to that number, and then realize that it's going to be a very confusing time and an identity shift in the bridge from chapter 1 of your life, which is a hero's journey, really, to chapter 2. And Arthur Brooks talks about this in a book I finished last night entitled From Strength to Strength. He calls that first phase of life sort of the era of fluid intelligence. And the second chapter is more of a crystallized intelligence. And you want to try and leap from chapter 1 to chapter 2 before you start the inevitable decline that we fear in our own ability to generate creativity and solve problems. Because then it's like the professional athlete that hangs on too long and you watch their career decline in front of you and you were like, in retrospect, why didn't they just leave at the peak? How could they not time that right from that first phase of life to the second phase, where you become the wise elder? And you have a whole nother role to play in your own life and in the world to share your wisdom. You may not have the same energy, but you're not going to decline in the same way if you leap to Richard Rohr's second chapter or go from strength to strength, as Arthur Brooks says so eloquently. And what was interesting was the peak of the first chapter for both Richard Rohr and Arthur Brooks was at about 20 years, which is really interesting to me because that's where I hit that peak of mastery in my own profession, but also the edge and the smell of burnout was starting. And as that curve of potentially inevitable burnout, like this Choose FI person was saying, was desperate to get there, or is that curve going to cross over your FI number, or will you not reach FI before then? And you want to time your exit in kind of a landing-like fashion as a pilot to have that perfect landing. It's hard to do, and it's going to be messy, and you're probably not going to get it right, which is where this one more year syndrome phenomenon or phase comes from. But being in it, as I've said before, it's really like the fog of FI. It's fear of getting out, fear of letting go of the past, passing the torch to the generation behind you, and taking advantage of all the strengths and the strength that you have to give value to the world in a completely different way, where you don't have to be in the chair to earn an income. You're work optional, but passionate about the next work you're going to have for the whole second half of your life. And for me, FIRE is you time it right in your 40s or 50s, and you've had a balanced transition to one half to the second half. And for late starters, it's hard because when we start late, it's like we don't get to that second chapter really until a little later, but it's okay. I know that's a soapbox diatribe, but I've been thinking a lot about this and embracing it because it's really disorienting.
So I have a question for you, Bill. In the opener, you were saying that it's almost put out there as a negative thing, as a bad thing, but then your description kind of said that you thought it was a bad thing for you because you were fearful of getting out. So what makes you think that it's typically a negative thing? And do you think for you, is it a bad thing or not so bad?
This is like FOMO FI. You watch folks do it, and as a late starter, you watch your contemporaries who were better with their money, got a little bit of an earlier start, retire as you're working hard in the messy middle to get there. So you have a big sense of FOMO. And then what's interesting is when you get there, there is in some ways a lot of peer pressure, really, a Jones effect. And I've had many people tell me, you don't like your job, you're talking about burnout, get the f out and stop doing what you're doing, embrace the next step. And what I've found is all of a sudden I started enjoying my work more. I didn't have to do it. I didn't have to be there. And then, as we just talked about, it gave me a huge lever to pull. What I've done in the recent past, after sitting with it for 3 or 4 months, is gone to my leadership and said, okay, here are my terms. If I am going to work more, in which I could work longer and provide value to the healthcare space that isn't going to be detrimental to my health, isn't going to make me feel like I need to get out and have that cliff-like retirement that is very common in people that are burned out. I've been able to negotiate more pay, a retention bonus for less work, and day shifts only. I have been able to dictate exactly the circumstances in which I would continue to work. And if they said no to me, I would have to reevaluate and say, do I really want to do this way? So yeah, instead of 10 shifts a month, and this is superpower of shift work, quite honestly, and FI, I'm going to be doing 6 for the next year or 18 months. And I will not regret that. I know that intentionally I'm choosing this. I've negotiated it using the power of FI to be many things, like a sequence of returns risk mitigator, a flexible part of the plan where we have a market crash and I can shift up and buy low if I want to. My wife is still working on her exit, and she's working 4 days a week, and that's the person I most want to spend time with. I can embrace my life as wife-fi a little bit, but I would miss having her around. And then the other thing I get to do is I'm not saving for myself anymore. It allows me to have fun money, giving money. I can help my kids in their 20s build wealth that they wouldn't otherwise have been able to because they don't have that kind of a gap. They're in their low income years and I'm working longer. I'm not necessarily doing it for myself anymore. I'm not having to do it. My oxygen mask is on. And I think in working with a planner and not flying blind upside down in the clouds of the fogify, it enables me to have clarity in the process of the transition where I will not suffer from the one more year syndrome because I know I'm doing it. It's not that I worked 2, 3, 4, 5 more years, find out I'm 5 because I was scared and thought I needed to have 30x instead of 25x, and then go, I wish I wouldn't have done that and let go sooner. But you did it intentionally and you knew it. You still regretted it somewhat. Patrick, what are your thoughts on this? I've been going on and on like I tend to, so I'm sorry. But it's top of mind. What do you think about what I've said? And what are your thoughts on this? Do you think you'll suffer from it too? Or are you going to be like, I need to get out? If I understand you correctly, you're doing things that you love that you could do forever.
Yeah, first of all, I relate to a lot of the things you just said, not from a full retirement standpoint. I'm really far from my own retirement, I think. But definitely there was a transition period for me where I did mini retirement from engineering to financial planning. And it was kind of like what you said, where if you're more in control of the time and maybe you're working less hours and you can dictate the terms a little bit, I think it does become a lot more enjoyable. And you might rethink, do I want to give this up entirely at this point in my life? And then second, I was just listening to an advisor talk about their own retirement. And the conclusion he came to was that when you completely shut it off one day, and you don't know exactly when that day is, it sounds like, Bill, there is still going to be a transition period. And for Jackie, it sounds like it was 2 years, but it could be 30 days, it could be 180 days, it could be even longer, depending on the person and maybe depending on the career too, right? So yeah, I think it's something that you're just going to continually need to reevaluate and just ask yourself, is this still serving what I intend to do with my time, with my family, and for my financial situation?
Yeah, Bill, it sounds like you're trying to say that one more year syndrome is actually a good thing, especially how you've explained it. And to me, it says you are being intentional. I was intentional, even though hindsight, I wish I would have done it sooner. It gave me the safety that I needed at the time. And I don't think that it's a bad thing. I never thought it was bad. I do wish that I would have done it sooner. So we can maybe try to adjust the perception out there that when we use the term one more year syndrome, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you're intentionally holding on for reasons that matter to you, then it might not be so bad.
What's interesting is I've been in a phase where every day I go to work, I've been thinking about this. Is my job giving me more than 50% value in the time I'm spending doing it? Is there a return, not necessarily financially, but from a purpose, meaning identity consideration, where I am getting more out of it necessarily than I'm putting in? Does 1 + 1 = 3? And one of the interesting things is I work with people and I work with patients and I work with staff, and it's really been in some ways the staff that keeps me there. It gives me the opportunity to lead from the front and behind. They have a lot of questions. They feel secure in my stage of the career. Hell, they say, we're glad to see you here. We love working with you. You are our quote favorite, sucking up to me a little bit. And they have said, well, we don't look forward to the day that you leave. And you're not going to necessarily take these work relationships with you, but there is this sort of not just dopamine hit, but flow-like feedback where it's really nice to feel valued and feel gratitude and feel the love, really, that people can share with you. We had a very tragic case this morning. I worked the night shift last night. It was like a pit situation. I haven't told you, but we had a 2-month-old come in with SIDS, and we couldn't get him back. And I'm just like, oh, this is awful. It's everybody's worst nightmare as a parent. And we got through it together. The room was quiet. We all had our roles. We worked very efficiently, doing everything we could for this little child on the bed. And at the end of the day, we all took a moment and said, let's think of the parents. Let's give pause to this, because life is fragile. And this is part of the one more year syndrome. Am I spending my life like I want to? Because I could die tomorrow. And this tragedy happened to this child, to this family. And that could happen to me. I'm 60. I see people younger than me dying. And in working, am I, quote unquote, wasting time? Am I earning dirty money? It cannot be about the money. It absolutely cannot be about the money, because then you will have worked too long. That does not provide you value anymore unless you're using it for a higher purpose. So yeah, I do very sad work in a way, and it takes an emotional toll. It takes a physical toll, and people go through this. This is part of burnout in any career, mine being a little unique maybe. But is the PTSD, is the fact that I have been working night shifts that actually have scientifically proven to shorten your life. Am I damaging myself? Am I damaging my relationships? Am I damaging what I could give to the world in my second chapter by not, quote unquote, optimizing for time that is declining? I got a physical decline. I've got the depreciation of time. It's fixed. It's finite. It could be tomorrow. And we've talked to George Kinder about those 3 questions, and you've got to ask yourself the answers to those questions. You can go back to an episode we had where Jackie and I answered them on the air. And you've got to ask yourself the philosophical meaning of life questions in this process to hopefully understand why you're doing what you're doing, so that you don't be a workaholic and not be able to let go. My father worked till he was 80. I can't imagine he doesn't have regrets, but in some ways, maybe that was the only way he could define himself, which to me would be sad, but to him was what he needed to do to have a valuable life. I am getting tearful and very philosophical, emotional about this time, but it is fun. Just like Patrick said, you're making adjustments, and I want to empathize with our community, because everybody has their own numbers. Everybody has their own fine number. Your life is unique to you. Your numbers are unique to you. This process of transition is unique to you. And don't let anybody else dictate how and when you do it, which people tend to do because they want you to join the party, join the retirement club, the FI club. And you have to push back and say, this is a different kind of Jones pressure. And I may have wanted it, but now I'm letting go slowly to feel it.
I'm so sorry you had that rough night in the ER. Just thinking about the baby, that must have been rough. I just can't even imagine. So yeah, you do have a rough job, where a rough night has a whole different meaning than a lot of other jobs, like me working in corporate America. So I'm sorry, I didn't realize you had such a tough night. I know when you worked overnight, who knows what your night was like. So I am so sorry for the baby, the family, and everything. So I'm glad that you're reflecting on all of this, and I'm glad that you took an impromptu moment and kind of talked through what you were feeling about leaving your job and all that. But you talked about the people. And for me, I think that was a big thing. And Patrick, I know you like the people that you work with at your job as well. I was to the point where just because I left my job didn't mean that I was leaving the people. The people that I really liked and that I connected with, we still stay in contact. So I'm just wondering, Bill, for those people that you said that really liked you, you really liked them, do you believe that you will be separated from them and not really able to continue a friendship after the job ends, after you leave and retire?
That's an interesting question. I've kind of downshifted the place that I work. I used to work in trauma centers with 100,000 visits a year, and that's more transactional, and you're just trying to get through the day in kind of a chaotic way, like Noah Wiley and The Pit. I'm now working in a smaller community hospital where you really have a community impact, where people really care and know the people that are coming in with kids and families. And it really matters to them how they care for their community. And you are part of that. As to whether or not the connections will stay after work, my experience is when we left to school with our kids, about 10% of the people will carry over to the next phase of life. And that's okay. You've shared a common experience of raising your kids in the same school, but once you move on, people are going to move on, and out of sight, out of mind a little bit. Part of emergency medicine is you are a ghost in medicine as you're working, because people, they're in their most fearful, anxious moment of life, and they're in shock, and they won't necessarily remember to thank you later. It is a bit of a thankless profession, as we were talking about in the debriefing we had as a team after this event, to share our feelings, which is very important. And I think in this job, where I'm in a smaller place, I know everybody, they know me, we've all shared our personal lives with each other, there is going to be a much higher impact, a much higher carryover of relationships out of the ER. It can feel like a lone wolf profession, where as captain of the ship, people may be a little afraid to know and trust the leader, but they do. And in sharing that trust, it's very valuable. It's very precious. It's a huge responsibility. And I do have friends in this community already that I will socialize with outside of the ER. And there will be more, I'm sure, than I would have had at other places because of the environment I'm in. But I also know that they're different generationally. And what you've done, Jackie, and I want to hear about it, the resignation letter, that last day where you walk out and it's done. I haven't done that yet, but I know that once I do that, the hole that I leave will be filled instantly. I'm not essential. I can be replaced imminently from a transactional, taking care of patients hole in the schedule. But will there be a hole that is bigger than that? Probably. And then you'll be missed for a while, but then the staff will turn over, and in a very short amount of time, you are forgotten because they need to move on. And people feel this way, I'm sure, with their jobs. Jackie, how did you feel writing your resignation letter, actually pulling together your things and walking out the door?
Shoot, I felt great. I felt really good. Maybe because of the one more year syndrome. Remember, there was 2 years that I had to think about this stuff. So I was probably over ready. But here's the thing I could say, because this does come up all the time in our community, and really people that retire at a traditional age, they'll say, most of my friends are people that I work with. And if I left, I wouldn't have any friends, or some flavor of that, right? And things have changed where people aren't at the same job for 30 or 40 years like they used to be, first of all. And most of the people that were close friends that I knew I would stay in touch with, because we already had each other's personal phone number, their social media, there's all kinds of stuff. So I just remember many of them, they had already left the organization before I ever retired. So we were already staying in contact with each other. So I think on average, people change jobs 12 times during their career. So that wasn't as big of an issue. But one thing I did purposely do, and Bill, you've already done that as well, and Patrick, you're doing it too. I had already begun to make more connections and build more relationships outside of my job. Well, I got to know you after I left my job. I was part of the FIRE community. I was part of an organization called Better Investing. I was tapping into my financial education, financial literacy, and my interest in personal finance. So I had a lot of new friends and relationships that were already built, even while I was still working my regular job. So it wasn't as much of a transition as I thought. So I stayed in touch with the people that I liked at work. Some of them, I just worked with them. We weren't necessarily friends and wouldn't have been friends outside the job. And then on top of that, I was creating these other relationships. I don't even really like to call it networking because I'm not trying to do any business stuff or whatever, but just people that are like-minded and somehow we just vibe. So that's how I did it. And I have some wonderful friends all over the world now that I would have never imagined while I was still working my corporate job.
So Patrick, you have had a job or two along the way, And people leave jobs because they're fired, because it's toxic, because they want to do something else, or they want to grow, or they want to grow their income. So in some ways, there's a one more year syndrome with a job while you're still working and have to work. Have you dealt with that between jobs where you're like, this isn't resonating with me, this isn't serving me? How do I get out onto a position? Is the grass greener or is it not greener? Because what's interesting is you take who you are with you. The problems you have, the challenges you have before FI, unless you've worked on them and created a new, different persona and understand the inner workings of yourself, because the first half of life is very external. It's an accumulation thing, money accumulation phase. The second chapter of life, as Arthur Brooks and Richard Rohr talk about, is very internal. It's knowing thyself. It's being at peace with yourself, being at peace with the fact that you don't have to externally accomplish things. You're not building a resume anymore. You're really creating a legacy that's much more internal, because it's not what you necessarily take from the world. It's what you give to the world. It's what you give to people around you. Your legacy is in the people that have dealt with you. It is how you make them feel. And that is critical. It isn't like you gave them something to augment their life or their job or their money. It's what kind of feeling do you leave them with when you leave? Patrick, I asked you a question about it. In some ways, whether knowing it or not, you've been through this with a job to job transition. What was it like for you?
I don't think it was as extreme as you were saying of, oh, I must get out. I just had a suspicion that there might be something out there that was a little bit better. And I thought to myself, I've been on my own financial independence journey, far from finished, but I have some level of power, FU money, if you will. And I decided, could I use this to experiment, see what would happen, see if, like you said, the grass is actually greener. And if it doesn't work out, I knew I could always go back to the old career. Luckily, it worked out for me, but you never know if you don't try, right?
And Patrick, you are an engineer by trade that is transitioning into financial planning.
It's already done, basically, at this point. Yeah, I'm full-time in financial planning. Still do a little bit of work for engineering company, but that's intentional as well. So yeah, I'm really happy to be at the point where I'm at. And it's like you said, I've retained many of those relationships still. Not all of them, but many. I think they are going to be important to me moving forward.
Yeah, I'm taking the good parts of your past with you and letting the parts that didn't serve you go, that would hold you back and drag you down in the present and prevent you from getting an abundant future, which is post-accumulation, is to embrace abundance. It is a whole new world out there. You do want to get there. You don't want to get stuck in one of the 7 stages of money maturity or one of the phases of the first chapter or the hero's journey. We all need courage, brains, heart, and resilience, aka the Wizard of Oz hero's journey. And what Dorothy realizes at the end of the day is she left the ordinary world. She travels to the colorful world of Oz. She meets the Wicked Witch of the West, who is one of those shocks in life that sends you off on a tangent, a medical trauma, financial trauma, divorce, whatever. And then she has all this hope for the Wizard of Oz. There's magic investing buttons that they need to push, and they will get there through this magic. No, you got to do the work. But in the end, guess what? She knew that she had resilience, courage, heart, and wisdom inside of herself. She had the power inside that she hadn't tapped into. She thought she needed it from somewhere else. She had companions along the way, like we do as late starters. We catch up to FI together. We are all on this Wizard of Oz journey, and the Yellow Brick Road is on the Simple Path to Wealth cover of the book for a reason. It's there. Look at it that way. It's a wonderful thing. You get one life. Do it together, as we say, and help people rise up with you, share your knowledge. As you can tell, guys, my brain is exploding. I am not in fire or reached fire. I am on fire. And it feels good. It's like coming out of the clouds, the fog of Phi. You reach that other side. But as you did, Jackie, and as you have, Patrick, you got to prepare, as Fritz Gilbert says too, for that time. If you focus exclusively on the math till you're there and you haven't prepared, and he has this great blog article and talk at Economy, and those videos are coming out soon, about the 20 steps, some very tangible, to leading up to retirement. And he did a poll and got the 20 steps from the audience, and only about a quarter or a third of them, 7 out of 20, were about money. 13 of them had absolutely nothing to do about money. We got to read philosophy books. In some ways, they're woo-woo self-help books, but these are the books I'm reading now. I'm not reading personal finance books, but these books about life, about transitions, are really very important personal finance books. As I've said before, life is an open book test. People don't realize it. And when you're young, you're immortal, you're focused on the present and having fun, and the dopamine hits maybe, and it's paycheck to paycheck, spend first, save last, because you got all this time in the world to get to that later future self. You can't really understand them. But guess what? If you get the youth to read The 5 Regrets of the Dying, think about their own mortality, that they're not immortal. Reverse engineer their lives, invert, as Charlie Munger says. And then if you read the book, 5 Regrets of the Dying, there are top 5 regrets. One of them is I work too much. That's like the top one. Then it's also I wasn't true to the life I wanted to lead. I was skiing in somebody else's tracks. As Desert Phi, who's in our community, says in one of his blogs, I didn't carve my own path, go the road less traveled. I didn't let myself be happy would be number 3. And then the 4th and the 5th, I can't remember, but they're there. But I know what the 6th is. The 6th regret of the dying came from my wife. It's probably funny, actually. She had always wanted a hot tub when we were in late starting mode and catching up mode. And it wasn't just any hot tub she wanted, and it was going to generate a whole landscaping project. It ended up being a $30,000 to $40,000 thing. Can you think of the opportunity cost there of putting that money in the market and growing it for you, where I would have been buying back freedom, pushing the time to Phi closer and buying time with that money? She said to me, and it was hard to argue this, it became the 6th regret of the dying, honey, Bill, if you don't create this, do this project, contract this project for me, get the hot tub in place. And she wanted one from Canada that you had to put together, could have leaked. It wasn't just any old hot tub either. It was extravagant. But she said, if you don't do this, then really, you're going to be on your deathbed regretting that you didn't give me a hot tub. It was a present-focused freedom thing that meant a lot to a person that means a lot to me in life. Happy wife, happy life, happy partner, happy life. So yeah, you've got to spend the money along the way. You can't just eat rice and beans. You can't do deprivation to get to Phi and not have led a balanced life. Remember Brandon Ganch? He did it by age 30.
Mad scientist.
Yeah, mad scientist. He regretted that he didn't go to a bachelor party because he was afraid to spend the money. And he still remembered that. So these decisions are really important. Patrick, have you ever made a decision based on money that you regret, much the one more year syndrome people regret, where, you know what, could have used the time, but I also maybe didn't spend the money on something at the time that, you know what, I can't get that back?
I'm sure I have. Not a big one like the hot tub comes to mind. Everyone makes those mistakes along the way, though.
Bill, now you spend more time reading philosophy books. I think for our audience, because I really want to focus on them and how they can apply what you're saying, because the stuff you're saying is very important and it's very Bill-centric. And I want everybody to get to the person where they can see themselves and things become very centric and focused on them. You might be interested in doing societal stuff that have always been important to you, and that's where you want to put your time. Or maybe there's something about education or a certain group that you wanted to focus on. So you're at the point, Bill, where now money is not the thing that's keeping you from doing what you really want to do. So now you can spend the time reading those philosophy books. And for our audience, what is that thing that if money were no object and money was not the obstacle, what would you want to be doing? And once you can answer, that helps you with so much. It helps you become a better person. It helps you create the legacy that you've always wanted. So I think you bringing that up really does remind me that everyone should think about what is their thing. And it may be sitting right in front of you. And you just have always had to say, I just don't have the time or I just don't have the money.
Yeah, what I hear over and over again from people like Jordan Grummett, who wrote Taking Stock, which I think should be read before The Simple Path to Wealth. Some of these philosophy books, in order to understand your goals, your purpose, your meaning, your values, and get the knowledge base and the skills, when you edge towards retirement, we may find that the educational system we live in beats curiosity out of us, beats the interest in experimenting and sharing and learning with others out of us. And we get hyper-focused on productivity, especially in our country, where it's not just a consumption society. I haven't done anything with my life unless I've produced. And 2 weeks of vacation, that's not enough. The Europeans have it right with regards to, okay, I need to have lifestyle along the way in reasonable sense. And in America, we're a little too hard-hitting and going, and it is a cultural thing. In addition to consuming, it's working. And you need to have these moments along the way, not miss the moments that you can't get back. So the one more year syndrome actually exists throughout life, is what I'm thinking now. And the regrets accumulate along the way, and you only really see them in hindsight. And you want to have as few regrets as possible. I think one of the most critical personal finance books out there is actually Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. If you haven't read this small book, you've got to. It's a psychologist that was in a concentration camp, and he survived that experience. And he tells you throughout the book, who are the people that actually survived the catastrophe, the horrible nature of what that it did and the genocide of it. Who do you think survived in that population, Patrick? Have you thought about this? Because we forget about history sometimes.
Only the ones that had family on the outside they were trying to get back to.
Okay. What do you think, Jackie, who survived?
I think you've told me this story before. I think Patrick had a good answer, so I want to go with that.
Okay. The people that died were the people that had hope. The people that died were the people that didn't face reality. They thought, oh, we'll get out by Christmas. And there was a famous captain in the Navy that ended up in a concentration camp in Vietnam for many years. I can't remember his name, but again, the same inspiration along the lines of Viktor Frankl, where you survive by facing reality, accepting reality, not necessarily hoping in the short term. You got to play the long game. And those are the people that survived. And the quote that I was referring to is, between stimulus and response is a space. In that space is our true power to have choice and to grow. So we need to maximize and take care of that space and not just let our caveman brains react habitually and unconsciously to a stimulus without pausing, planning, as I've talked about, and pivoting. It's like one-click shopping. Put it in the shopping cart, let it sit there for 24, 48 hours, and decide later, did I really need this? And maybe not. And that's okay. Giving yourself pause, giving yourself, as you say, Jackie, grace in this process. There's no need to rush, because as I realize now at 60, time passes faster and faster. When you're young, you got all the time in the world. And I know I don't now. That baby died. A dear friend of mine, the same day, died in her 50s. No anticipation. She's gone. And she's actually our housekeeper. She's been with us for 13 years, but we sat down at the table and ate dinner with her. She picked our kids up from school and brought them home. She wasn't an employee. She was a member of the family. And I feel a profound loss. And we don't talk about death. We're afraid to talk about, just like money. It's taboo, right? It may never happen. No, we all share that experience, and it could happen tomorrow. I feel that way very acutely as a 60-year-old, where I maybe didn't feel it at 40 or 50. And I'm not trying to be morbid. It's not a bad thing. It helps give us purpose. As we all say tritely, live our best lives. What the heck does that mean? Well, I think that really means being present in the present, but planning for the future and letting go of the past. And that's how Viktor Frankl survived. He was present in the moment. He wasn't hoping for a better future. And he took action on helping others survive. These profound books that I'm talking about, and you may think I'm a little woo-woo, and Bill, you're just going off on your soapbox and your tangent. I am realizing from friends and mentors of mine. I've got friends here, Patrick, who's in his 30s, Jackie, who's kind of with me a little bit.
Don't say it.
But multi-generational friends light me up. That's what the FIRE movement does. I love having friends that are in their 20s and 30s and their 70s and 80s. There is so much to learn from each generation. And as we may have mentioned, Jackie, when we had our late starter meetup and breakout at Economy, what was the age range of the people there, and what did that tell you about the late starters?
Yeah, I think we talked about it before, but basically we had someone very, very young that was, I think, 23. And then we had someone that was 70. So clearly the 23-year-old was probably way under our typical demographic, and the 70-year-old was way over. So why were they in the room? And for the young person, he wanted to learn from these late starters, because we talked a lot about, why do you think you got a late start? What are you doing now? What's working for you? What's not? And so I thought that was a great reason to be in the room. Now, I don't remember what the 70-year-old said. I know you talked to him a little bit.
Yeah, that was Wally Conway. So shout out to Wally. Maybe we should have him on the show. He is a vibrant 70-year-old who went bankrupt, I think, in his 50s, lost everything. He's got a great story. And he came to our meetup, and I think he was fine. He'd gotten there, bootstrapped his way back, and he worked later. And that's part of the deal when you're a late starter sometimes. You got to do the work and work later, like my mom did. She worked from 55 to 70 to give us the gift of her own financial independence. So she made sacrifices for us. We wouldn't be financially independent if my mom wasn't financially independent. These are all interdependent things. FI isn't an isolation, a siloed thing. It gives freedom to other people in your life, to your kids, past and future generations. But anyway, Wally, he had the dream of hiking to the base camp at Mount Everest. And he's a pretty fit guy. He's taking care of his health span, focusing on longevity, because without health span, money span is worthless, right? It really is. Because he shared about a medical issue where he had, I think it was a heart attack and needed stents. He had that sudden medical thing where he's like, oh my God, my time could be numbered. It delayed his gratification. He didn't lose sight of his goal, and he worked his way back. And he's going to wear a Catching Up to FI t-shirt at base camp, take a picture, and post it in the community. And I would encourage everybody to do that. If you reach a goal, if you reach a milestone, you reach $100,000, $1 million, post a picture in the community to celebrate with us. It's like burning your mortgage. It's writing your letter of resignation. Share that letter. I'm curious what you wrote. Jackie, what did you write in yours? How did you word that? I think Diana Merriam shared hers, and it was very interesting.
Yeah, hers was amazing. I need to start collecting people's FIRE letters because I think they're profound. It's more than just an I quit letter. Whenever you ask someone, what should I put in my letter of resignation? 2 sentences. I'm leaving the company. It's been great. And my last day is this day. Okay. But when you're retiring early, especially, it's a little deeper than that. For me, I rewrote it multiple times and I finally got it down to 1 page. And I basically was just letting them know that I was parting from this career and retiring. I use the word retirement for something else. I believe I have a bigger purpose. My bigger purpose is financial literacy and education. Even though my cup runneth over, I have learned a lot about personal finance. Now it's time for me to share it with other people. And I believe that's my life's work. That was my mission. And so I put that in there. And I was like, yeah, I know this is a big dream and all of that. And I got these huge goals and all that. But my point was, I'm not just quitting this company or my career. I'm going on to do bigger and better things that I believe I was meant to do. And again, hindsight, I wish I would have been doing it sooner. How much more impact could I have had if I was doing this more of my life? I can't change the past, but now that's where I want to put my emphasis, and that's what I want to do. But again, I got it down to one page and gave it to my boss. I hand delivered it to him before I emailed it to him because I wanted him to know what it was. And we had a little bit of a conversation, and I think I gave him in writing a 60-day notice. So I gave more than I needed to. I just wanted to depart with grace so that they know it was completely intentional. And I think he had an inkling that I was doing more in this other space, and that's where my heart really was. So that was my fire letter.
So, Patrick, I think in this room we're talking in today and on Squadcast in this podcast, I would say in some ways you're the smartest guy in the room because you're young, you're curious, and curiosity and experimenting are what carry us through life. The curiosity of a child, per se. And you were so curious that you went into CFP. You're curious in this community. You're intentional with your finances. You're going to have a great life. And it's not that I haven't. One of the superpowers of Late Starter is we focused on life to the detriment of money, and we didn't lead it maybe in a balanced way. And I certainly regretted that I couldn't retire at 50 when I got sued and then pre-COVID. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, but I had to hold my feet to the fire for myself, my family, and work my way through it. Some people need to hop to another job, but I couldn't be guaranteed that I would be able to have the same income in order to catch up at a lifestyle that we were accustomed to. And yes, we're high income professionals, but everybody has their lifestyle. Everybody has their number. It's not poor me. For example, the young man, the 24-year-old that was in the Late Starter room, he was the smartest guy in the room, really. He was willing to harvest the knowledge of people that had gone far before him and had made a lot of mistakes. He'll make his own, but you can almost be guaranteed he won't make the ones he heard about that day in the room.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bill. Whenever I'm doing my financial literacy sessions, many times it's with adults. And what I try to do is find the youngest person in the room and I give them a $2 bill only because they're the ones that has the most time to do something with that information and the knowledge that they were gaining from the day. So, yeah, I love seeing young faces.
Yeah, what's really cool is even if you're a beginner in the Late Starter journey or the FIRE journey, the hero's journey to Oz, and then back to the ordinary world with the power that you have learned, you can share this with one person. I have a physician's assistant at work that I love working with. He's new. He's been doing it a year. He's 30 years old. He has 3 kids, a young wife. He's very busy with life. The HR department hasn't helped him in onboarding him to a good retirement trajectory. He readily admits the vulnerability he has and the weakness he has, that he was not taught about money. Nobody sat down with him for 10, 20, 30 minutes, an hour, which will change his life. So that's one of the reasons that keeps me at work, because I'm like, okay, without overwhelming him and trying to intentionally hold back so that it doesn't become too much and do it in small bites, like eating the elephant of FI. I said, okay, well, just like we say to our late starters, here's Monarch, the app. You need to aggregate your accounts, know where your money is. You need to have a high yield savings account. I shared the app with him. And then you've got your workplace app. You have your brick and mortar bank, say Ally that I use, say Monarch that I use, say a retirement account. And in 5 minutes, you can bounce around through those, know where your money is, where it's going, what your net worth is, what your savings rate is, all these important numbers. Yes, then you automate it, right? And his savings rate that he was defaulted to in his retirement account was 2%. They defaulted him to a savings rate that was below the match. And he was defaulted in one of his retirement plans to a target date fund that was from 2010. This is 2026, people. They had defaulted him to a fund that had 50% bonds and was acting like he was retired for 16 years. Log in, look at it, get somebody to help you walk through it. Clean up the mess of your 401k like Jackie and I did with an episode with her one pager that tells you how to do it. Put your hand on these people's shoulders. And this is one of the joys I get from work. It isn't necessarily saving a life. And in some ways, I am saving a life because this guy has 3 kids. He doesn't have his 529 account set up yet. He's focusing on paying off his student loans to the detriment of investing and suffering from the should I pay off debt or invest syndrome. And so I'm like, okay, let's educate you. Let's look at this. And I will help you click the buttons. Let's up your savings rate. Let's get that money out of your old 401k. Let's aggregate it. This one's better, lower cost all around. Where are the hidden costs? Let's click a few buttons. I'm not going to do it, but I'll tell you what I think, just like as a physician. I'm a financial doctor now, and it's really fun to help young people. You're 30, you're going to be fine. We just got to set up a few things and then set it and forget it, automate it, escalate it, and get on with your life. That's all fine and good. Things that our late starters can do.
I appreciate you sharing all of this today, coming off of a really rough night, and sorry about your loved one as well. I hope it feels better to be able to share it. I enjoyed hearing it. I know Patrick did as well. And it's kind of neat to just do it on the fly sometimes, and appreciate that we're in your circle like that.
Yeah, this podcast was not planned. We didn't intend to record. We started having a conversation. It was like, whoa, we need to document this because this is something we're sharing. So we paused, we regrouped, and we hit record. There's no script here. This is just stream of consciousness, thought, conversation about actually important stuff. These are the conversations I think everybody should having. And I hope in opening up, turning myself and yourselves inside out and showing our weaknesses, our vulnerabilities, that is one of the superpowers that people, not just late starters, have in life. If you're an alcoholic, you go around and ask for forgiveness to everybody. That's one of the 12 steps. And in some ways, catching up to FI is like the 12 steps of consumerism and not alcoholism. And it's okay. There's no shame in it. It may be an addiction. It may be something where it was too much and too intimidating. And the financial services industry and the alphabet soup imposed the fear of God in you that you couldn't do it alone and manage your money. But it is imminently possible. You will catch up. It's a certainty if you do the 5, 10, 12 steps and stay the course. We want to leave you today with inspiration that you need to do the perspiration, but you will grow immeasurably and doing it together. I feel connected to everybody in our community, whether you're in the Facebook group, listening to the podcast. We are all interconnected, whether we want to recognize it or not. And reach out to us, ask us your questions, share in the Facebook group if you feel comfortable. It's a pretty vulnerable, safe space, and we're proud of that. Email us. Give us a speak pipe. Put your voice out there. I hate to say it, Dave Ramsey's debt-free scream. That feels really good. Burn your mortgage, burn your past, embrace your future. Okay, that's enough of the Huru Guru. I'm sorry, guys, but hopefully you've enjoyed our conversation. Patrick, what's it like to be in the room with these 2 old people?
Hey, speak for yourself.
I certainly do. What's it like to be in the room in this conversation at your age?
It's great. I have a lot of these conversations for work. It's fun to have them with friends, maybe people that are farther ahead in their life than myself. And yeah, just like that 24-year-old, maybe I'm not 24, but I'm still going to listen, observe, and learn. So yeah, it's been really fun.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to get some things off of your chest, Bill. And I think this is a great platform. And if you were feeling the moment, I was glad to kind of be a part of you having this conversation.
Yeah, let's continue to have conversations. Send us your ideas, folks. What do you want to hear about? What do you want to talk about? We're happy to be the sounding board for this community. We're very proud of you. And thank you for letting me brain dump a little bit to offload tough stuff that I've had to deal with in the last couple of days. But it's related to what we're doing with Catching Up to Five. So, Jackie, what do we say at the end of every show? Help me out here.
Yeah, we say always remember it's never too late to start. It's better late than never. And it's always the right time to catch up to Fi.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week on the show. We got some great stuff coming up.
So, Bill, as you know, we cannot do this show without our amazing staff and the people that help us put this on. And our editor is Fritz Brizard. We love them and they keep us going.
Yeah, Jackie, I mean, this show wouldn't have the quality it has without our folks, our peeps. And we'd also like to give you a few calls to action for the show. We love our community and we hope you love us back. If you would like to support the show and our mission to help late starters, you can do that at Buy Me a Coffee, which is a platform that allows you to make a donation. The link is in the show notes and on the website.
Check out the show notes for resources mentioned in today's show. Also, head on over to our website at catchinguptofi.com and check out our vetted resources, partners, and affiliates for discounts and their services because we love sharing great deals.
Please share the show with others and head on over to our Facebook community to help us grow. If you prefer video, head on over to YouTube and watch the show there. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Catching Up to Fi. We would appreciate it if you could also leave us a 5-star review to help our message reach others.
And while we are financial educators that love to teach, remember that our content is for general education and information purposes only. We are not providing financial, legal, or tax advice. Always do your own research or consult a professional before making important decisions.
So, Jackie, we'll see our audience next time on Catching Up to Fi. Cheers.